Hello, everyone. It's Sonia, and welcome to Leadership with Sonia. Let me just start with something that most organizations don't want to admit. Leadership doesn't fail in strategy. Not in the boardroom, not in the PowerPoint, not in the annual planning retreat, right? It fails in the moment a leader avoids a conversation they've been putting off for weeks. It fails in the moment they react instead of respond when someone pushes back. It fails in the moment someone finally speaks up and gets shut down so fast they never do it again. Those are the moments that break teams. Those are the moments that erode trust. Those are the moments that turn good people into exit interviews. And here's what we don't say out loud enough. HR is in the middle of every single one of those moments, cleaning them up, navigating around them, carrying the weight of them, often alone, often in silence, and often without thanks. Okay. Yeah, think about that, right? You see it every day. The breakdown in communication no one wants to name, the tension sitting in a team that hasn't resolved anything in moments, the leader who was promoted before they were ready, the silence in a room after someone, something should have been said, right? And you're the one called in to deal with it, not the exec, not the board, you, HR. Most of the time, it's not because people don't care. It's not laziness. It's not malice. It's because in the moment, when the pressure is on and stakes are high and all eyes are watching, they simply don't know how to lead. And that changes everything about how we approach this work. Okay. This is where neuroscience changes everything, because we understand what's actually happening in the brain under pressure. We stop blaming the person and start addressing the pattern. Under pressure, the brain doesn't default to leadership. It defaults to survival, right? The amygdala fires, cortisol rises, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for empathy and rational thinking and considered decisions, goes significantly offline. Fast thinking, defensive responses, worst case assumptions, right? Self-protection above all else. That leader who raises their voice at a meeting and dismisses an idea before it's finished being explained goes completely silent when things get hard. They're not choosing to be reactive. Their brain is choosing for them. And if we don't understand that, if we treat every reactive moment as a character flaw, we keep solving the wrong problem. We send them on a course, they forget the moment they're back under pressure. We coach the behavior without addressing what drives it. We put in policy, right, when what's needed is a pattern interrupt. Because the thing is, nothing changes unless we do. So here's a reframe. I want you to really sit with this one. You don't have a people problem. You have a moment problem. Once you see it that way, the conversation with leadership changes completely. Instead of saying, we need to do something about this person's communication style, you can say, we need to help this person or this leader develop the capability or the capacity to show up differently under pressure. That's a different conversation. And I think one that's far more effective. Thing is, HR's real role isn't just policy or process or performance management, though all of these totally matter, and they still matter, right? It's about helping leaders show up differently in the moments that matter most. And that is a strategic function. That is commercially valuable work. And most HR teams are already doing that. They just haven't named it in that way yet. So let me explore something with you. This is where I bring in the leadership brain framework that we love, the concept and the model that we've built, because leadership is not just behavior. It's about what's happening in the brain before the behavior. And great leadership moves through 4 states in sequence. Miss any of them and leadership breaks down. Think, feel, connect, perform. Most leaders skip straight to perform, fix it, solve it, move on. That's exactly where it breaks. Think, clarity before reaction. In high pressure moments, leaders don't slow down to think. They react on assumption. They fill in the gaps with the story their brain has already written. Great HR leaders interrupt that. They help leaders pause and ask, what do I actually know here versus what am I assuming? That single question creates space. Space creates different outcomes. Feel. Regulate before leading. When high emotional arousal is high, thinking is low, frustration, stress, bruised ego, these they're just not unpleasant. They literally impair cognitive function. A leader who walks into a different conversation deregulated has already compromised the outcome before they've opened their mouth, right? The work is helping them recognize and regulate that state first. Next one is connect, safety before solutions. The brain does not engage with logic unless it feels safe. This isn't a soft concept, it's neuroscience. Psychological safety is the precondition, not the nice to have. HR sees this every day. The employee who shuts down in one-on-ones, the team that won't speak up in meetings, the leader who genuinely wonders why no one is engaged, right? Connection is the gateway to performance, full stop. And last, perform. Action that actually lands. Only after those 3 does performance work. Grounded in clarity, delivered with emotional intelligence, built on a foundation of trust. This is what separates leaders who get compliance from leaders who get genuine commitment. Okay? There's a lot there. So reach out to me if you want me to talk to you or share some insights, because the reality is you don't get a warning before the moment hits. You're not in the training room with the time to reflect, right? You're in it live, emotional, messy, and everything you've learned feels very far away. That's why I built the leadership brain and pause model, right? Because it's leadership doesn't fail in theory, it fails in real time. And what people need in real time isn't a 12-step framework. It's simple, memorable sequences that you can actually assess under pressure. Pause, interrupt the reaction, even for 1 second. That gap is everything. Assess what's really happening here, not just the service behavior, right? Understand, what does this person or situation actually need from me right now? What am I assuming that may not be true? Select, how do I want to show up? Not reactively, but intentionally, and engage. Then act with clarity, calm, and the courage to say what needs to be said in the way it needs to be said. The whole model can happen in 10 seconds, and that's the point. It's not a slow reflective process. It's a pattern interrupt that creates enough space for the brain to come back online before a leader says or does something they can't walk back. That can't walk back, right? And that's the one shift that changes everything. It changes everything. It's just tiny tweaks, big changes. So let me bring this into your world, because I want this to land practically, not just conceptually. The difficult conversation that keeps getting delayed, right? Not a capability issue, a moment issue. The brain perceived threat and chose avoidance. The leader shuts people down in a meeting is not a personality flaw. A brain under pressure response, right? That's what it is. A prefrontal cortex offline, a threat response on. The employee labeled difficult or resistant, not a character problem, a threat response. Someone whose brain has learned this environment isn't safe, right? The team that looks Engaged but isn't delivering. Not a motivation problem, a connection problem. People perform for leaders they trust, not just leaders they respect. HR is called in every single time, right? Not to solve strategy, but to repair moments, which means your work is not administrative. It is the most human-centered, science-backed, commercially critical work in the organization, right? And how did I come up with this? 20 years of working in leadership and neuroscience. And here's why it matters commercially. Because moments don't stay moments, they scale. One avoided conversation becomes weeks of unresolved, right? Unresolved tension, then disengagement, then a resignation you didn't see coming, right? One reactive leader becomes a team that stops bringing ideas, stops speaking up, stops caring, and your organization loses the innovation it can't afford to lose. One culture of silence becomes think, right? Where decisions are made are the safe ones, not the right ones. Suddenly you're dealing with a moment. You're dealing with a business problem, right? Showing up in your quarterly results and your Glassdoor reviews and your board reports, these moments scale. Okay, so for better or worse, and which direction they scale depends entirely on whether leaders know how to navigate them. This isn't a soft investment. This is a hard commercial return, right? So important. So HR is not the support function. You are the intervention point, the translator between strategy and behavior. The ones who see patterns, feel the impact, and are uniquely placed to shift how leadership actually shows up. This is not a small thing. This is extraordinary work. Okay, leadership doesn't fail in strategy. It fails in moments. And you are in the middle of every single one. Not to clean them up, but to change them. Because when you shift the moment, you shift the leader. When you shift the leader, you shift the culture. And when you shift the culture, you change what's possible. And that's where real leadership lies. All righty. So let me end with this, and I'd love your insights and your comments. If today really resonated with you, this is exactly the work we go deeper on inside Leadership with Sonia. We work with HR leaders, people managers, organizations who are ready to stop patching moments and start building leaders who can actually navigate them with neuroscience-backed tools, real frameworks, and the kind of support that sticks. Whether you're developing your leadership pipeline, right, or coaching managers through hard conversations or trying to shift a culture that's been stuck, this is the room for you. So definitely go to leadershiphq.com.au to find out more, or go to soniamcdonald.com to reach out to us, talk to me, talk to us. And also, if you would love to be on our lives, please let us know, because we need leaders to change the world. We need the ones that show up differently in moments that matter. So if you'd love to be on our lives, if you'd love us to interview you, please comment, please share this video. Let's build those leaders together. And we want to talk to you. We want to talk to extraordinary leaders and humans out there. So I would love to know your thoughts on today's Leadership with Sonia. And thank you so much for listening and watching. And always stay courageous. Thank you.